Hey everybody, I'm Honest Steven, and today we're going to be looking at the Nintendo Switch. This will be an overall review, but not simply of the system on its own, but more so of where it is currently after being on the market for a year, and if it is actually worth all of the praise that it has been getting and all of the sales it has been seeing. So, as I said, it's been a little over a year now, and I bought this day one. I had my unboxing video if you were following me back then. And I was very impressed up front with the system about how snappy it was. It's very quick to just pick up and get right back into a game. That's still true to this day. It's seen several updates across the year. It's on version 5.0, I believe, but there's been incremental updates also. None of them have really added anything unexpected or markedly big, but there was some neat things added in, like the ability to record 30-second clips of video for sharing online. That was kind of nice. Hopefully that'll be expanded on in the future. But beyond that, it's been the same system out of the box. And I feel like that means if we're at this point already, it's pretty good to come to terms with what we have on hand. So I'm going to try to make this video a little bit shorter than I normally do because I tend to ramble. But I do prefer my unscripted style. I like to just go in and use my fresh thoughts. So we'll see how that goes. But to start, I'm going to cover the good. If you watched my last video, you'll see that I use the Skull & Co. branded grip case and their analog stick caps. And as I said in that review, these two accessories have perfected the Switch as a handheld device. I love docking the system and playing it on my HD TV. It feels like a good way, which is why I have the Pro Controller, as that is purely the option for that. When I'm on my TV, I use that. But one of the big pushes of the console was its ability to be used as a handheld. To just pick up your progress and continue going. And the Switch kind of faltered with that a bit. I mean, it's about as ergonomic as you could hope for while still being a sleek, small tablet. You know, I mean, it's very thin, all things considered, and it feels okay in short bursts. But anything more than like 15 or 20 minutes and it's just not comfortable. My hands start cramping up. You have to do an awkward position to get your thumbs where they need to be. It's just, it didn't work out that way. So Nintendo kind of missed the ball there. Some people have talked about Nintendo potentially creating a Joy-Con, like a Pro Joy-Con, which would have a little bit more heft and bulk to it. I don't think Nintendo will go that route simply because the Pro Controller is an option, and it would be weird to have a dozen different SKUs. But Nintendo's also the company that gave us the Wii, and the Wii Remote, and the Wii Remote Plus adapter, and the Wii Remote Plus controller, and the Nunchuck, and the Pro Controller, and the controller, Classic Controller, and so on and so forth. So who knows? But as it stands, it has been a year now, and they've had no indication of creating a more comfortable system. So, getting the grip case resolved that complaint for me, and allowed me to focus on the games themselves. For what it is, this will never go toe-to-toe with a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One or Xbox One X. It's not designed to. It's designed to be a multifunctional hybrid console more than anything. And Nintendo's always been known for doing their own things. But it does work exceptionally well. I mean, from cold start boot up, it takes less than 15 seconds, I believe. And right there, it takes 5 to 10 seconds to get into a game from the main menu. Everything is extremely snappy. Like I'm in here right now playing Bayonetta, and right there, no hesitation. If I want to go ahead and check what's going on here with the news, it's all very quick. I don't know if you guys are getting the glare. If you are, I can't really tell. And then, bam, right back into the game. Um, Nintendo designed the OS on this, I'm guessing, first and foremost, to be a games device and a games device exclusively, and they nailed that. There's no excess weight or guff to this. I mean, going back to the Wii U from the Switch, or even going back to over to the PS4 or whatever from the Switch, it is mind-boggling how slow it is for anything to be done. It's almost hard to believe that I ever put up with it, but it is instantaneous. It gives you the gratification of just popping it in and getting a few rounds of Splatoon, a couple of races of Mario Kart, or whatever else. Bayonetta, I think, is great for that because I can knock out a few verses, as they call them, and then call it a day for the time being. So it is absolutely nailed it. Hit that perfectly in the sense of the handheld. I play this more than my 3DS, and I love my 3DS. I have a whole bunch of... I think I have like 80 games for my 3DS. I loved the thing. But I never feel compelled to bring it with me anywhere or to just carry it around the house. This has replaced that. Yeah, it's more bulky. It's a little more cumbersome to justify. You can't throw it in your pocket, but it's more convenient. The games are more fully featured and interesting. Like, the biggest game to come out on Nintendo 3DS was something like a top-down Zelda, which, don't get me wrong, I love the Link Between Worlds, but it's not a 40, 60, 80, 100-hour thing, or just something more complex and involved. Like, you couldn't really do Bayonetta on a 3DS. You couldn't do a Devil May Cry or any other thing, fast-paced action game, not really, without making some sacrifices due to the control scheme and due to the overall processing power of the system. So, I feel like the Switch is a perfect middle ground between what we're used to with handhelds like the Vita and the 3DS, and what we've become accustomed to with home consoles like the PS4 and the Xbox One. There have been some sketchy ports, obviously, on the Switch. I mean, I've heard Doom is pretty rough. It's got a lot of support from its devs, which is great, but at the end of the day, unless you really specifically want the portability or the gyroscope controls, it's hard to justify the extra price for Switch's version of Doom when it's a fast-paced game that runs better on other consoles. And obviously, even with the numbers that the Switch has moved, you don't find as much online community with third-party games, which is a Nintendo problem. So I absolutely do not see this being a primary console. It's a perfect companion piece to anything, to a PC, to a PS4, to an Xbox One. I feel like if you have one of those for the big, huge budget third-party titles, or the really, really heavy multiplayer-focused titles, and you have the Switch for your indie titles, for your first-party Nintendo titles, and some of the more niche things, I feel like you couldn't ask for anything more as a gamer. But that being said, there are a lot of negatives here. Like I mentioned before, the Joy-Cons are not the greatest thing in the world, but that can be resolved with a Pro Controller. But not everybody's going to want to go out and spend 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks for another Pro Controller, let alone 50 extra bucks for a grip case. So I have to judge that on its own merits, and it's not perfect ergonomically. Not in the comfort grip, not on the Switch itself. So that's kind of something I feel like they've done as much as they could to remedy that up front, but it's not every person that sits down and puts the Switch in their hands is going to go, wow, perfect, I could play this for hours. But also, as much as it is a positive that the OS is so gaming focused and so snappy, it is extremely bare bones. I mean, you have a news section, which is just random stuff correlating to the games you play. You have the eShop. You have an album for your screenshots and your video captures. You have controller settings, primary settings. That's it. You have a friends list that you literally can do nothing with. You can use it to jump into a game that a friend's playing at the time, but it won't jump into their game. It'll just, as far as I've seen with the few games I've played using this feature, it'll just boot your version of the game up. You can't contact them. You can't send them game invites outside of games. You really can't do anything with it. So you can see when somebody's online and you can see what they're playing. That's really it. I mean, it's very lackluster compared to every other available platform. And obviously, through that lacking aspect, there is no party chat system built into the OS. There is not a native group organizing feature. So, obviously, your mileage may vary. In my case, everybody that is on my friends list is somebody I know personally. I have their contact information. I talk to them through Facebook or through text messages or Discord. So we have means of communicating outside of this. But that is a one-person case. A lot of people rely exclusively on the in-game stuff. Plus, it is just a lot easier to organize when it's all right there. And this does not have it. So if you're used to booting up your Xbox One and getting a party going on with a few of your buddies and figuring out what to play from there, you're not going to do it here. And that is a very hard, steadfast knock against this. I hope that sooner rather than later they will add something like that, maybe coming when they finally launch their full-fledged online service. But who knows? Nintendo's very hard to read, they're very hard to guess, and anything could happen. They could do nothing and just be like, there you go, guys, we're making bank, why do we need to change anything? Or they could embrace it, as this supposedly new Nintendo seems to be doing. So, as it stands, knock against it, they're pushing social aspects like integrating Facebook and Twitter, but they don't really want you to socialize. There's no group management, stuff like that. So, kind of has a roadblock right up front from the get-go for multiplayer games. And nowadays, online multiplayer is a core component. Battery life, it's been 100% spot on to where Nintendo said it would be, 3 to 5 hours, and that's been fine for me. I don't really see any necessary reason to play any more than 2-3 hours at a time. Handheld wise anyway, and if you do, you just charge it, and it's not a phone, you know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna need it in a pinch for an emergency situation. It's a games device, so I've never found myself kind of grimacing against the battery life, but some people do think it's a little weak, and I can understand that, but it's on par to what the Vita had, and it's on par to what my 3DS gets when I'm really cranking it out. In comparison of overall sense, like, I'm playing a big beefy version of Bayonetta compared to a more limited 240 resolution game running on a small handheld. Like, they flesh out enough that I haven't gone, wow, this is so low battery life compared to those things. It feels fine. And most people I've known that complained about it at first seem to have kind of let it go and been fine with it. So battery life is hit or miss, but it's been consistent. That's the most important thing. Nintendo slated a specific range of time depending on how powerful the game is you're playing, and it's been true to that. Another thing worth pointing out, though, is hardware-wise, I feel like this isn't going to have the longevity that other consoles and handhelds Nintendo has made did. As I mentioned in my grip case review, I don't have to do anything to remove my right Joy-Con. It just slides off because the latch broke. And this is the third one it's happened to. But in all fairness, Nintendo may have very well, and I'm assuming, I don't know this, but they may have very well done that because this is the expensive piece of hardware. This is the tablet. This is the system. And if you drop it and the Joy-Con doesn't break free to absorb impact, this is more likely to take damage. So maybe they were just like, we could have put a metal thing in there and it wouldn't have come off, but it would have broke the switch. Or we could put a plastic one and it will come off, and these are easily repaired. They're not that expensive to replace. I guess that's fair. I mean, how many videos are there on YouTube now of people throwing these switches out of planes, onto sidewalks, from off buildings and stuff, and the Joy-Cons get destroyed. But the Switch consoles are fine. So if that's the only real hardware problem that I think we're going to see a year in, then I guess I can accept that and not knock it. Some people have had mention of Switches being a little bent. I haven't run into that. I haven't personally seen it with my friends. Some people have talked about the top casings being over-tightened and cracking. Again, haven't run into that. So you can't really judge the system against it. Overheating hasn't been a problem. People say their system has overheated, but there have been numerous tests where the system cannot fail through overheating. It's just not. It's designed with safety cutoffs. So build-wise and performance-wise, I think they nailed it. I feel like the overall idea was executed perfectly. As perfectly as they could have with the idea of a hybrid. And the games that have been heartfully ported to this system are great. Super Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, Mario Kart, all first-party games, ARMS. Great. They run super well. They look super great. They've been very well supported. Mario and Rabbids, Lego City Undercover, Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2. You know, these are ports, essentially. Bomberman R. They're ports. But Super Bomberman R was launched in an awful condition. Because Konami was testing the waters. And Konami came back and they gave it a whole bunch of support. They upped its frame rate and everything, and it gave it a bunch of extra content. Bayonetta's, been handled pretty well. Lego City Undercover, a lot of people have been harping on this because it doesn't run great, but it doesn't run great on any platform, not even the Wii U. It just doesn't. So it's not the system that's doing it. Mario & Rabbids is pretty cool. It's got a lot of content. So as long as you buy games for this system that were developed by producers, publishers, and developers that actually care about the platform, you're not going to be disappointed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's getting dumped on here just because it's the hot seller right now. It's kind of being rushed out. Things are being inconsistent. Certain games have been delayed into oblivion. Certain games are being launched in ridiculous states. But do your research on the games. Take your time. And so long as this is not your sole gaming device, I think it is the absolute safest bet you could go with right now for a new investment. If you have a PlayStation 4, an Xbox One, a gaming PC, and you just want something to help fill the gap, help give you options when you're not at home, help give you something when you don't want to be on the TV, Nintendo nailed it. It is, without a doubt, worth all the praise it's getting. It's going to lack a little bit. You're going to be a little disappointed with some aspects of it coming from PC, coming from PS4, and so forth. You are. But before you purchase, if you go in educated, you go in informed, it won't blindside you. You'll be able to prepare yourself with a little bit of workaround that needed for the little things that you need to work around. And I can't imagine anybody wanting more out of this system. So with that said, I can safely say that as it stands today, over a year into the Switch's availability, buy it. If you have any love for Nintendo's game exclusives, if you have any interest in handheld gaming, if you just want something different, something worth talking about with people that may not be as into gaming as you, this will nail it. I do really strongly recommend the grip case, though, and these analog caps, man. If you're going to play docked all the time, get a Pro Controller. This thing's beautiful. It feels great. But that's for another day, so don't linger on that too much. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you own a Switch? Has this helped you decide to get a Switch? If you don't have a Switch, what are you waiting for? What is keeping you from investing in this device? What games do you kind of want to see on the Switch? What are you hoping gets announced in the future other than the ports? Like the video if you enjoyed what you saw. Like the video if you feel like you are now more safely informed to make the purchase yourself. And subscribe to my channel if you want to keep up to date with all my videos. Last video was a review of the Skull & Co. grip case. I did a review of Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition months ago to test the waters there. And I upload gameplay periodically while I'm getting content for reviewing games. So I try to cover all the bases, and I also like to, cover the news on the topic once in a while, but not too often. So thanks for watching, and for the time being, I'm going to continue doing my best to bring you one of the most honest opinions you can find online, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.